Hi everybody, Gary Williams again here, reaching out to friends and colleagues all over the world who work in the arts and the creative industries to see how this coronavirus situation is affecting all of our lives. And today I'm very pleased to have with me the fellow who's waiting patiently there, vocal coach Richard Halton. How are you doing, Richard?
Great, thanks, Gary. Yeah, I'm actually doing okay.
I see you're poised. You're poised at the keyboard, ready to work. Have you been using that?
This is my workplace. Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
are you there just to dust the piano?
Yeah. The famous piece. Yeah, no, it's actually my normal working day is pretty much unaffected by this, apart from there's just fewer students. But other than that, we're doing 2 or 3 days a week. I've managed to sustain it, so that's quite healthy, and quite, there's grounds for optimism, shall we say?
One of the great things about what you do is that, and you're already used to teaching students over the internet, aren't you, using Skype and whatnot?
Yeah.
So actually, I mean, I know you have a studio space as well where you work and you teach at a college, but a lot of your work was already online. So actually, for you, for many of your students, is business as usual.
It is business as usual. Like this week, I've taught somebody in Warsaw, somebody in Poznan, somebody in Mexico City, somebody in Tenerife, as well as somebody around the corner. So it's actually harnessing the technology has been business as usual, as you say. So I'm quite pleased that things are continuing as they are.
I'm assuming, like everybody else in the arts, you must have experienced some kind of drop-off. I mean, because all of my work's gone. Everybody, I mean, everybody's work has just disappeared. Now, though we still need to look after our voices, I guess people are auditioning less, or they haven't got the money, I mean, it must have had an effect.
Yeah, in terms of what we do at Vocal Balance Studio, we prepare a lot of industry pros for auditions. And obviously that side of things is cliff edge time, although there are 1 or 2 producers. I think Cameron McIntosh is still auditioning. Bill Kenwright is still auditioning. I helped somebody with a Moulin Rouge audition yesterday for the West End. So that obviously they're factoring in what's going to be hopefully potentially starting up again in the autumn.
How are they auditioning? How are physically auditions still going on?
So they do self-tapes. So they would set up it's so easy these days with an iPhone. That's all you need in the backing track. Or sometimes you'd have to do it a cappella. But they send the music through via email. It's incredible nowadays. It wasn't like my day. In my day, you would have to get it through the post and then go through it with a coach or learn it yourself and then go in and sing it. These days with self-tapes, they send through the material. So an email would come through with a Dropbox PDF of the music and then an accompaniment and the lead line. They actually have an MD somewhere who pounds out the lead line on a piano, and all of that is contained within the Dropbox folder. And you just learn whatever your track is. So I was working with a guy yesterday on I think it was Christian's material in Moulin Rouge, and it's all detailed as to what he's got to learn, effectively.
It's actually,
and then
it's really encouraging to hear how the fact that that they are still auditioning. I mean, we know that this situation isn't going to be forever. We know that it's going to come to an end. But the fact that people are, people with money are making plans on the basis that it is going to come to an end in the autumn or whenever that may be. It's actually really encouraging, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. They have to keep things ticking over, and obviously they're speculating, but the wisdom is that this won't last for a year. This won't last probably for 6 months. Hopefully next 3 or 4 months they can get the ball rolling again, and they'll have it all cast. That's the thing, because if they leave it and they want to go back into the theatres in October, say, that means rehearsals have to start in late August or September, and they don't want to be casting very quickly. They've got time now to do it.
They certainly have.
And so plenty of time to go through all the submissions of hearing various people. And I think then this is the early stages, obviously, for Moulin Rouge, for example. And then the people they're interested in, they will get into the room, so to speak, at a later date when things have started to calm down and we're actually interacting with each other again.
Sort of singing through a face mask. All the audition tapes will be like that. So, I mean, obviously you work a lot with people in the West End. What has happened to all of the cast members of those shows? Have they been just dismissed? Are they still getting paid? Have they just been left high and dry? What's generally happened?
The feedback has been that contracts have been suspended or terminated. You hear stories like the Wicked Company, for example, who have basically that's it until they go back and a new company, or they will have to re-audition for their jobs or whatever it may be. That's the feedback we've had. I don't think many companies are existing as they were in terms of the payroll, because that is huge amounts of money being paid out for zero gain, because they're not getting any bums on seats anymore. So I presume then the government would take over in terms of them being self-employed actors. And then obviously their books would be investigated for the last 3 years, and then they would get an 80% representation of that median figure.
Is the feeling in the industry that what the government is offering is good enough? Is that helping people? Or I was reading an article in the paper today about, they reckon depending on how you look at it, 2 to 4 million people sort of slipping through the cracks and not getting really anything like sufficient help. What's the word in sort of the West End for cast members generally? If
you've got up-to-date books, then you will get your 80% up to a certain amount, 2,500 or whatever it is a month. So that would, most people would fit into that category. If you've got up-to-date books, of course, actors being actors, that some have been in paid employment for. There's one guy in Phantom who's been there since 1990. I mean, this is extraordinary. But most actors would be on yearly contracts. So whatever they've done the couple of years before that would then come into play. So if they've got a low income, self-employed income, then obviously it's going to be measured out over the 3 years. So an average would be taken for the 3 years.
Often an actor could have been hardly done any work for those 2 years, suddenly lands a terrific role on great money, a year contract or however long the contracts are, and thinks, great, I'm set. Buys a house or buys a new car, or works, does their spending based on their new income. Suddenly this happens, and what they're getting from the government is dramatically less than the 80% they get.
I'm afraid that could be a likely scenario for quite a few of our students, But I mean, universal credit, don't even go there. I don't think that's a workable model. I think that needs to be seriously addressed, because a lot of people are being put through the ringer when it comes to declaring previous earnings or whatever it is, and then there's a hold up of 5 weeks, and people need money now, and they're not getting it. Yes, they get an advance, but then it's taken off what they would get subsequently, so they're massively out of pocket.
Tell me how is your health? Do you know anybody that's been affected by this personally?
Yes, we stories filtering through, anecdotes. I told a student last week whose grandfather died of coronavirus. Wow. He'd had an operation for cancer and was moved to a different hospital, and then contracted this other thing, and then fortunately died of it. And he wasn't that old. I think he was probably in his 60s or early 70s. I've heard stories of people having symptoms, like weird symptoms. In fact, I had symptoms last week where, I mean, I have a flu jab every year, and I haven't had flu since 2004, something like that. So I make it absolutely, because of being self-employed, and we need to be on top of things physically. So I have a flu jab every year. But last week, Tuesday to Sunday, I was displaying COVID-19 symptoms, apart from the sore throat and fever. So I regularly tested myself temperature-wise, and I was like 37.4, something like that. So I was fine, but I had terrible aches and pains, really, really bad, and shivers, and I would be freezing cold one minute, and especially in the lower back here, I'd be freezing, and then I would be sweating, like a pig, and it was just fluctuating. It was going crazy from one to the other, and I've lost my sense of taste and smell.
You have, or you had?
I had, and it's gradually coming back now, but I lost that completely. So when I was eating stuff, it was just texture. It wasn't any taste. So that was weird. I was sleeping for hours, and it was weird. It was really weird. So I was thinking, isn't it? What's going on? And I read on Facebook a few other people saying the same things. There's a guy who works for the BBC called Ori Aduba, who won Strictly a few years ago. He was celebrating the fact that his sense of taste and smell came back, his sense of smell came back when he was changing his son's nappy, and suddenly he got this blast.
Hurrah!
Yeah, he cried with joy. The fact that suddenly it hit him like a wall, it was really weird, Gary. Like Tuesday to Sunday, I was polaxed.
But this is the thing. I mean, we all fall ill with all manner of things, particularly at this time of year. So it's very hard to. I'm sure lots of people are saying, "Oh, I've had it," when perhaps they haven't had it, and maybe vice versa.
Yeah.
Because the symptoms seem to be so varied in different people, don't they?
Very much so, and also how it affects you, mild to extreme. There seemed to be a big cross section of different manifestations of the symptoms, and I'd love to be tested. I think they're going to be sending out antibody test strips so that you can, get an indication as to whether you've had it or not. Because obviously, if you've had it, then you'd be immune to the virus to a certain extent, But that won't alter the fact that we're doing in this house. We're doing everything the government have asked us to do in terms of not going out. Like people aren't coming to the house. Like yesterday, my son's singing teacher, who lives locally. My son's at Guildhall, and his singing teacher lives locally. And Adrian dropped off some music, and I was outside cleaning the cars, as you do. And I heard this voice, hello, Richard. And it was Adrian. And he sort of tentatively left the bag at the gate, kept his distance. So we're doing everything that is asked of us. And Jonah took the music in a bag and then washed his hands, made sure that, he was sanitized just in case Adrian, because you just don't know who's carrying it either. I mean, that's the weird thing, is that people are
taking it very seriously, aren't they? We're all doing what we should be doing.
We're doing our bit. Yeah, we have to do our bit for this. Otherwise, this will perpetuate. And the idea behind it is that we knock it on the head by these draconian measures. And it's not too draconian in this country. In Spain, it's far worse. And in Italy, it's on another level. In fact, I think yesterday they let people out to take their kids out or to walk the dog or something. There's a fantastic video circulating on social media of people on the second floor, and they have let their dog down on an extended leash, like in a harness, and the dog is wandering about a good 20 or 30 feet below them. Wow. And it's cocking its leg and it's doing its business and stuff. And then they sort of winch it back up. Yeah, no. And I think those people are gradually getting out and about a little bit. I think you said in Spain it's sort of short walks, 5 minute, 10-minute walks.
It's very strict. The police were out a lot yesterday enforcing it. If you go, you're supposed to you can walk the dog, but it's 5 minutes strict and very close to where you live. It's not for you to take a nice stroll while you're at it. It's for the dog to get back inside. It's, it feels a little bit much sometimes. I think I would rather it be that strict.
Yeah.
I think the reason they're so restrictive is because, yes, it's fine if one or two people go out with their dog for a nice stroll, or it's fine if, people just go for a walk. But if everybody has the same idea and, then suddenly everybody's out taking a nice stroll. What about where you live? Are you in a you're in the UK, I assume?
Yeah, we're near London, but we're very fortunate. We live in a village near Wycombe, and it's very rural. So 5 minutes walk, and we're in these woods, Bradnam Woods, which go on hundreds and hundreds of acres, and you can get lost in the woods without seeing anybody, actually.
With your family?
Yeah, so both my kids study at Guildhall School of Music and Drama in London, the Barbican. And they've been told, actually, that they're not reconvening until September. So they're back with us. My daughter actually has a flat in Mile End, that area of London, a student flat. And our son, because he's a master's student, has been back with us anyway. So he's been commuting with us every day going into London. So there's no change as far as our son is concerned, but Scarlett's back. She's studying jazz vocals, and Jonah's studying classical singing. And so the great payoff with this is that we're spending time with our children. I mean, admittedly, Scarlett's studying jazz. We don't see her until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon because she's in bed. Most jazzers
part of the jazz studies is to stay up drinking till very late every night. Yeah,
that's it.
That explains everything.
Burning the midnight oil. So she sort of appears from the swamp sort of mid-afternoon, and then we've got her Nord piano set up on the landing. I'm in this room teaching. My wife is in the adjacent room teaching online as well. And then my son sort of books, because they're having online lessons from Guildhall, which is fantastic. But obviously the Guildhall have a responsibility to keep the course going. So he books lessons around our teaching. So he's in here singing his opera, and Scarlett's doing her composition. She's big time into reharmonizing little memes and stuff like that online, social media. Scarlett Halton on Instagram, fantastic, follow her. And so there's this sort of hotbed of creativity. Really, we're very lucky in this house.
Are you using so it sounds in very many ways for you guys it's sort of business as usual, but are there any ways which you are taking advantage of this time, and particularly the time together as a family, to do things? Maybe there's projects which you've had in mind that you've wanted to do for a long time which you've never had the time to do. Are there any sort of things going to come out of this for you guys which perhaps you wouldn't have had this not all happened?
Yeah, because the new dynamic for us is that daughter's away all the time. Son is with us, so we're just so blessed. We're so fortunate in that we're music makers, we're creatives, and we're able to share in their passion, which they've taken on in their. We're so pleased they do different things, very different genres. There was a time when Scarlett was thinking about going to classical singing, but she loves the freedom of modern music and creating music. She writes passionate about arranging music for a cappella voices or for combos or whatever it may be. So she's very much gone down that sort of creative streak. Whereas Jonah, with classical singing, is incredibly sort of formulaic and set out in stone. And that suits his personality. So we're very pleased that they found their own kind of vents, should we say, for their creativity, however disparate they might be. And because we're classically trained singers ourselves, we've always been a part of Jonah's upbringing in terms of his musical education. So it's, as I say, business as usual in terms of sharing that wonderful gift we have of music. And at times like this, it's so incredibly important to maintain creativity and appreciation. Even if you don't write music or you don't perform music, you can enjoy listening to it. And there's so many fantastic things going on creatively in the industry in terms of the social media. Like I saw Andrew Lloyd Webber, bless him, he'd done this every day. He today I'm going to do a bit of Joseph. So he played a bit of that show, and then he did a bit of All I Ask of You from Phantom. And the orchestra of Phantom got together and have done like a Zoom, kind of each person in their little box playing their instrument, accompanying in real time Andrew on the piano, and it's just beautiful to watch. It really,
I saw that. Yeah, it's very it's very heartwarming actually to see that that can happen. It's a really nice moment. You know, as I said before, I mean, for like all singers, I mean, all my work has gone, and I don't know when I'm going to be working again. And maybe it's going to be the autumn, maybe it's going to be Christmas, maybe it's going to be next year. Who knows? Hopefully, it won't be so long. But I'm not earning any money for ages, so I've got to be very careful what I'm spending. But as you know, my only indulgence is you.
Is it really?
Yeah, well, because I when this first happened, I thought I'm not going to have any more singing lessons. I can't afford it. But as you know, I've been having a lesson with you once a week, and I'm so glad. For me, it's so important because before I was having those lessons, I was thinking, well, probably not going to be singing for ages. I'm not going to be doing a gig for ages. What's the point? And I would just spend my time doing something. I wasn't even warming up or practicing. And I thought, well, you know, when it gets nearer the time I know I've got to be working again, I'll start working on my voice. But actually having these lessons with you once a week, just half an hour, it's like I know that I have something to work towards because we're working on songs. I don't want to have a lesson for my voice to be all out of shape. So it's like, okay, I don't have a gig, but the fact that I've booked time with you is focusing my mind and my energy. Think, I have to do this every day. And I only spend about half an hour warming up every day and singing a little bit. But I love to sing. I love I don't love the warming up so much, but that's fine. But I love just using my voice. And the fact that I know that I'm going to be, meeting with you online once a week, and doing that is a great motivator for me. And I'm so glad that we've had this, that the technology allows us to do that. Tell us if people want to get in touch with you. Your company is Vocal Balance, I think.
Yeah, it's a studio that was born out of our home teaching, basically, and we did some work for Guildford School of Acting, which I think you're familiar with.
That's right.
Down there in Surrey.
The cabaret course for them. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went there in 2006, and from that really, we got quite a lot of interest from students as they graduated. They wanted to maintain their voices, and so where do we come, Richard and Julie? So we founded Vocal Balance, and we worked out of a studio near Marble Arch, and that's how really it developed, thanks to Guildford School of Acting. And I've done some work since then at Central and Arts Ed, and now I teach at Trinity London Conservatoire. But they've got a really great up and coming musical theatre course there, working with lots of triple threat students, and who are gradually filtering out into the industry as well. So these guys need maintaining. They need to maintain their vocal health when they leave. And it's an interesting thing what you're saying about this sort of enforced me time, if you like, where you're having to be imaginative in how you're going to spend your day. Because initially you think, oh, I'm just going to spend loads of time watching Netflix movies, or go, maybe once a day go out and walk the dog, or whatever it may be, or the hedgehog. And the days are long. The days are really long, unless you have some sort of routine, or some checklist, a list of stuff to do. Like I've got a list which is growing longer and longer about things I can be doing, which is brilliant.
Yeah,
it's great, because otherwise, with life and you go out to work and you come back and you eat and you go the next day, you don't actually think, unless you get like holiday time, you kind of get swept on the conveyor belt of work, coming home, food, gin and tonic, food, go to bed, next day, la la la. So there's a bit of a routine for most people, I would say. So this enforced kind of lockdown just makes you self-evaluate a little bit more and where you want to be going. And look, I would say that there's probably not enough proactive thinking about what you do for a living. Vocally, it's an interesting thing, because I would say most singers aren't working on their voices as much as they probably should, similar to an athlete or a professional tennis player, or somebody who's involved in some sort of hand-eye coordination or physical coordination. Singing is a physical coordination. And if most people take it for granted they can sing. And those natural singers are the ones you've got to watch, because something can upset the apple cart of their balance of their voice very, very easily. It might be an age thing. It might be an illness. They might be singing on a cold or whatever it be. And then suddenly they're like, what do I do now? So those are the guys, who should be thinking about vocal maintenance, even if it's just a quarterly MOT. And I'm not touting for work. You must understand. I'm not begging for work. It's just that it interests us. These people are professional singers, and they don't think about how their voice functions.
Well, I feel like that whole speech was just aimed directly at me, because well, it's interesting. My journey. I never had lessons at all until about 18 months ago, a year or something, since we met. Something like, maybe, is it 2 years? I don't know.
It probably is closer to 2 years since I first met you.
Yeah, and I know that I can sing. It's just something I've always been able to do. But I actually just said to somebody yesterday, they was asking, they said, can you give singing lessons? I said, I could not begin to teach someone. I don't know how to do it. I can teach someone how to put on a show, but as far as singing is concerned, I just do it. And I've got a little bit of a better idea since I've been having lessons from you, but it's been for me an absolutely profoundly life-changing thing as having lessons with you, because suddenly you've made me think about what I'm doing, and I'm actually beginning to understand how I am making the sounds that I'm making. And if I want to make a different sound or sing a different note, I'm now understanding how to do that. And before, I'm nearly 50. I've got through my whole career without knowing that. So, good for me. But now that I'm getting this awareness, it's like a new beginning for me. It's opening up a whole new repertoire, songs that I am singing that I would never have even thought about. I would just thought, that's too high, or that's too difficult.
Exactly.
And now it's so exciting for me, because it's like a door is open to well, it's like I've got into a different league, not necessarily better, but different. I'm doing different things. And it's when we have, what impresses me, this sounds like a sales pitch, doesn't it, what we're doing to people watching this, but it really isn't. When what I love about having the lessons with you is that the difference is immediate, and it's so subtle. That's what's interesting to me. I'm singing the way that I normally sing, and you'll just get me to change a vowel sound or something slightly of the way I'm breathing or carrying my body in a very slight way, and suddenly it's like everything fits, and it's all just suddenly works a lot better. It's amazing for me. And I've shared your details with lots of friends, which subtly, delicately, of course, you know what you need, singing lessons.
Have you?
But it's really been a profound, and if I know the challenge is that we're not earning any money, but we do have all of this time. And I would say to any vocalist watching this now, it doesn't matter if they choose to have lessons with you or anybody else, or just find free stuff online. I'm sure there's loads of stuff on YouTube, but we've got this time, so let's use it to actually work on our artistry, work on our voices, work on what we do, not just by learning new songs, but by working on our voices, so that, wouldn't it be amazing if when we get out of this, as we will eventually, wouldn't it be amazing if we're actually in better shape and singing and sounding better than we were before this whole thing started?
That's the idea. And it's what Steve Jobs said years ago about never standing still. You never want to stand still, and vocally you can't stand still, because you're always changing as physiologically. We go through different periods in our lives where you come out of puberty, and then you're in your late teens, and your body is settling down, and your voice is immature. But it doesn't really, in a male voice, for example, doesn't really fully mature until, I would say, into your 30s. And then you go through a change. It's like exercising any other muscle in the body. If you don't exercise your body, then believe me, things tend to start to go south. They start to turn to mush on the outside.
You're underneath that training suit, you've got Spanx, so no, you can't tell. It works very well on you.
Thank you, darling. Well, I try to keep in trim physically because that informs my mental state as well, you know. And for singing, it's really great if you can breathe unencumbered, if you haven't got breathing difficulty because you're unfit. I mean, that's another thing. Keeping on top of things physically as well as mentally. I mean, the mental health thing is fascinating with this lockdown and how it can get on top of you, being being sort of exposed to too much news. I don't know what you feel, but I try to ration myself.
That's a touchy subject in our house.
Is it?
I try and stay off it. My thing is I want to be informed. I want to know basically headlines, and that's kind of it. Because I got the gist of the rest of it, and the rest of it's horrible. It's all bad news. It's all, most of the time it's horrible anyway, but now it's definitely horrible. And we were, you know, we'd wake up in the morning, get a cup of tea, put the TV on, and we'd sit there with like half an hour, 45 minutes of news, and then we'd start the day. Horrible. I mean, just feeling low and just depressed with all this shocking, awful stuff that you see. And I said to Philip is just likes looking at the news, and you know, he's always on the phone, and he'll say to me, "Do you know how many people have died today?" I don't want to know. You know, but I know that it can be addictive because we want to know what's going on. But I think we really have to be careful about limiting our exposure to that.
Yeah, that and social media. I mean, social media is fantastic, and we love it, and we use it all the time. We, you know, for vocal balance on Instagram or Facebook, it is so necessary. But sometimes you can just become consumed by it, and also the amount of conspiracies that are out there on social media. If you allow yourself to be sucked into it, it can drown you. You can feel as though you're submerged under it. So we try and ration ourselves. My wife won't watch any news if she can help it. As soon as, you know, Mr. Trump comes on the TV, that's it. It's off, you know. Even our illustrious leader himself, she will switch it off because she doesn't want any negativity in her life as much as possible, you know. But anyway, going back to singing, I think it's vital that you do approach it from the angle of keeping in trim vocally. If you're not using your voice, like, I don't know how many gigs you do a year, but there must be 200 gigs a year, something like that.
Well, that'd be nice. I'd be loaded. Can you imagine? No, I mean, I do a lot of gigs, but often when I'm on a cruise ship, I might be on a ship for 5 days. I'll just do one show. So even though my diary is sort of full, these chunks are out.
Easy life.
Easy life, yeah. Oh, how I miss it. Oh, how I miss it.
What do you do for the rest of the time?
I watch Netflix and just sort of lay
So
around.
you're used to this?
No. Actually, I am, but I was, you know, anybody that's seen some of these other chats that I've been doing, I mean, particularly with other people that do what I do, work on cruise ships as guest entertainers, the interesting thing is that we are actually quite used to having lots of free time, unstructured. And over the years, and that can be a real challenge actually for a lot of people that start doing this. But I mean, I think for lots of people in show business, you know, people that are working in the West End, okay, they've got the gig to do at night. But once, you know, you show up, you get to the theatre at whatever, 6:30, you do what you've got to do and you do your show. And it's kind of, it's pretty, you know, it's not that many hours. So you've got all day. And I mean, I certainly, because of working on ships for so long, I've had to get very good at structuring my time. And I will often have, if I'm on a ship for maybe a week, I will actually write myself a timetable, you know, and I'm only on my own, but I will, not only are there things which I need to do, but I'll make sure I do them at certain time. This is just me. Everybody's different. And some people might think I'm crazy for this, but I need to have a sense of structure to my day. And I certainly need to feel as though I've finished each day with and having achieved something, and moved on a little bit. So people might know that I'm really into photography. So there's a couple of online courses that I've been doing. So you know, I try, like now in this lockdown situation, I don't have a timetable, but I've got a sort of a daily checklist, if you like. Singing is one of those things, half an hour at least of singing, half an hour of some kind of study for photography, half an hour at least on Spanish, all these things. And there's maybe only half a dozen things on this list, but the day soon gets filled with those.
It does.
And I just like to feel as though, you know, I've done something with the day. And then if I watch, as I always do, watch a little Netflix or something for an hour or two on an evening, it feels like I've earned it, and I don't feel like I'm being a slob, you know, just.
Yes, that the couch potato school. That's right. Absolutely.
I think it leads to a healthy mind, and also exercise. You know, I mean, I've just started doing aerobics, and if you want to see me in Lycra, we should have done this 2 hours ago. It would have been a very different scene. But I watch a half hour. Well, I don't just watch it. I participate in half an hour. You know, just a free thing on YouTube. But again,
who are we talking? Joe Wicks, or are we talking Joe Honda?
It's a thing called, I think it's called teambodyproject.com.
Oh,
the website.
Right.
They're really great. They're really great. It's, you know, I don't feel they're not talking down. It's not all super fit people just making me feel, you know, disgusting. So I enjoy, but, you know, keeping healthy physically helps us, I think, to stay healthy mentally as well. And things is so important.
100%, Gary. I mean, I've got a home gym here, which I use all year round, so that there's no difference. I mean, I've got a bench and dumbbells and barbell and stuff like that. So there's no difference regarding my fitness regime. But there are so many online helpers nowadays. I mean, on Instagram, I subscribe to a few people, and they're fantastic in terms of reinventing the wheel, so it doesn't become boring and a routine in a negative sense. You know, there's so many things that you can do now thanks to YouTube and Instagram, and to keep your mind and your body active at times like this, which are challenging. They are challenging if you let it get to you. If you let the news get to you, the negativity pervade your life, then you won't get out of bed until late in the day, or you'll be watching movies, and then you become a couch potato, lethargic, and then your brain starts to suffer, your mental health starts to suffer. So it's so important, you're right, to just have a checklist of things that you set yourself a task to do in the day, and there's a sense of achievement, isn't there? When you check them off at the end of the day, then you can afford to have that gin and tonic without any kind of guilt at all.
Really?
I could
you can have 2 gin and tonics.
You could, not with my wife's measures, mind you.
If you're going to. So, do you have a website? Hey, if people want to get in touch and see more about what you guys do, what's the best way?
We do. If you go to www.vocalbalance.co.uk, or on Instagram @vocalbalance, and Twitter, and any of those, Facebook or whatever. But Instagram, you get most of the information that we put out there. We've got a great team of people to help us with that, and you can see what we're about and who we help on a regular basis. You know, if you want to have a lesson, you can book through the website. And if you know of anybody who would benefit from singing lessons, you know, not just professionals, but anybody who's a keen amateur, and you know that would really enjoy learning more about their vocal technique and how to apply that vocal technique in the genre that you're particularly into, then reach out and get in touch.
Perfect. So nice to talk to you today. Thank you so much, and stay healthy.
Oh, will do, Gary, and you too, you, Philip, and you know, stick your head out the window occasionally and lap up that wonderful Tenerife sun.
Yes,
I'm envious.
Until a policeman tells me to get back inside. What's a love, Richard. Take care.
I'll see you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye. Bye-bye.